It's great to have you with us this morning. Great that you're so exuberant. I know you're just trying to stay warm, but it is great to have you with us. It's great to have you with us out in ether land out there, and those of you who are braving the cold on the patio, it's good to see you out there as well. My name is Tony Fisher. I serve this congregation as its minister with great pride and humility. I'm just grateful to be here. If you're with us for the first time, you're especially welcome, whether here or online. It's just wonderful to have you with us. If you'd like to find out more about the congregation, I hope you'll let an usher know or let me know that you're here. Or if you're online, please let us know through an email or through the comment section below the Facebook Live feed. Our office administrator can be reached at office@uunaples.org. As always, I'm very happy to be supported in this or in partnership with a whole bunch of people to make this service possible, including our great staff. And Anna Riazzi's been out in the vestibule there, but she does so much to make these things happen. Daniel Goodson and John Forsyth in the AV room. Our wonderful music directors, Sean and Abby Allison. Joined today by a fabulous musical guest, Frank Corso. Hope you know about Frank, but if not, then he was with us before. Frank he's been playing guitar for well over 40 years, especially in old-time country blues and ragtime styles. He's written so many of his own compositions and recorded those as well with some fabulous musicians, both locally and in Nashville. People like Taj Mahal, David Bromberg, Dan Hicks, and Richard Smith, who he performed with right here in our sanctuary. Frank is being sponsored this morning by Jody Bisogno and Brentley Moore, in honor of Brentley's dad, Brent Moore, who passed away 2 years ago about this time. And so, Brentley, I turn the welcome over to you.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Brentley Bisogno Moore, and I've been a part of the RE program here for 10 years. And my parents, Jody and Brent, have been here even longer. Thank you so much to everyone here at UU for always being there for me and my family for the happy and sad times. We are so glad you've joined us, whether you are here in the sanctuary or watching us on Facebook Live at home or sitting on our pavilion. And we are no less grateful if you have found another time to watch the recorded service on Facebook or YouTube. If you are new to our congregation, we are still especially grateful that you found us. Our hope is to make you feel welcome and help you find ways to connect. Here we learn and grow together to try to live our values out in public. If you found us online for the first time, we also hope that you'll email administer at office@uunaples.org so that we can include you in all our emails, news blasts, so that we can include you in all our new emails and news blasts. Let you know about all the things that are happening here at UUCGM. And now let's settle ourselves into this time to worship our meetings prelude.
On a surging river, I get love coming down just like a shower of rain. And got a spell on me, and though it's hard to see, it's some kind of magic, some kind of mystery. Seems like a dream that has no limits. There are no boundaries or borders to see. The spell's been cast, leaving no illusions. That there's a lock in my heart, and I lost the key. I got a spell on me, and though it's hard to see, some kind of magic, some kind of mystery. Way up above, those clouds float freely through the open skies, Lord, in shades of blue. The way they move is like this loving feeling. It swept over me just like an early morning dew. I got a spell on me, and though it's hard to see, some kind of magic, some kind of mystery.
Thank you so much, Frank. We begin each day not knowing what it will bring. Steady routine or a surprising new twist. Some news that brings a great sorrow or an unexpected joy. A disconcerting thought or a flash of insight. The wish to retreat in pain or the delight in taking a bold new step. Each day offers up the possibility of something new. How we respond depends on how we ourselves feel loved and supported, how well we have grounded ourselves in our values. This is the reason for our coming together, is the reason for community. To welcome one another, to hold each other in loving kindness, to share our deepest concerns and our highest aspirations, and to continue doing that for as long as we are able. Let's join together in the Chalice Lighting response that you see on your screen. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the unity we seek. And Brentley will light our chalice. Awesome. Let's join together in humming, if you would, our centering hymn. The words will be on the screen. Hope you enjoy those. This is one of my favorites, so hum along in spirit. And I see the flames, so we won't go up in flames yet. Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined. With body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Those were words that would easily sort of meld with the ideas of the great teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh was born in Vietnam 95 years ago and died yesterday in Vietnam in his home temple, where he served as a novice almost 80 years ago. That would have been in the early 1940s, at the age of 16, when he became a novitiate. By the early 1950s, he was taking secular courses at the university in Saigon and engaged in a movement to renew Vietnamese Buddhism. And had also begun his inclination towards social activism. When war came to Vietnam, a lot earlier than when the United States got there, and the monks and the nuns had to decide whether they were going to engage and help in healing those who were suffering or retreat to the monasteries, Thich Nhat Hanh decided to do both, and thus began his life of an engaged Buddhism. In the early 1960s, he came to the United States to teach comparative religion at Princeton University, and also to learn more about his own faith, his own tradition, and to engage in teaching peace. In 1966, he was handed the lamp of transition to be a continuation of the direct line continuation of the teachings of Buddha in his home temple. In 1967, he was nominated by Martin Luther King Jr. to receive the Nobel Prize for Peace, which wasn't given that year. To read his life story is to just see a continuing unfolding of love, of teaching, of peace, of an engagement in the world. He was a truly gifted teacher. He dismissed the idea of death. Birth and death, he wrote, are only notions. They're not real. Adding that the Buddha taught that there's no birth, there is no death, there's no coming, there's no going, there is no same, there's no different, there is no permanent self, there is no annihilation. We only think there is. That understanding, he wrote, can liberate us all and allow us to enjoy life and experience it in a new way. What is real is this moment. As an example and a lesson, he told this story. During the season of retreat, when all the monks returned to the monastery in Vietnam, and he and another young novice had to do all the cooking and all the dishes for over 100 monks, and they didn't have any soap or sort of the normal things we think of that we think about when we actually washing dishes by hand. They had ashes, rice husks, and coconut husks to clean their bowls. Cleaning such a high stack was, in Thich Nhat Hanh's, a chore, especially during the rainy months, which is when the season of retreat was, so the monks had shelter, when the water was cold and had to be heated up before it could be used. But he was taught that doing the dishes, one should only be doing the dishes, which means that while washing dishes, one should be completely aware of the fact that you're washing the dishes. Now, this might seem a little silly at first, but why put so much stress on a simple thing? But it was precisely the point. And it took some time for Han to understand that the simple act of just standing there, washing those bowls, was a wondrous reality. There he was, being completely himself, following his breath, conscious of his presence in the moment, conscious of his thoughts and actions, being fully aware of the dish, the water, and each movement of his hands. He began to realize that in order to be able to finish so that he could sit down, the idea that if he could only finish to sit down so he could have a cup of tea, then the time of washing the dishes would be unpleasant and not worth living, because he wanted to get to the tea. But in sharing the lesson later, he said, while in washing the dishes or anything else, doing anything else for that matter, if we're only thinking about what comes next, if he's only thinking about the tea as he's washing the dishes, then by the time he gets to the tea to enjoy it, he'll be thinking about something else down the road. And his brain will be pulled continually into the future and never being present in the moment. And will never even realize that he had the cup of tea. Our minds will constantly pull us into the future if we let them. And because of that, we can miss out on quite a bit of life and never be alive and present to the moment we're in. Each thought, each action in the sunlight of awareness, Han wrote, becomes sacred. In this light, no boundary exists between the sacred and the profane. Sean will be leading us in our centering hymn, Filled with Loving Kindness, a traditional Buddhist chant. The words will be on your screen. If you know the tune, hum along.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
This is such a difficult time. We are fortunate to be able to come together, and yet we're all aware how much we've been affected by this pandemic, how much we've been thrown off our own balance, how much we need one another, how much we need to keep the space. Let's honor that and recognize in the faces around us the love that exists. Let's take that in. Even for those online, please know that you're not alone. That there's a loving community both here and in the wider community across the country that are with you this morning and always. If you have somebody that you've been thinking about this morning, concerned about, could be yourself, could be a family member or a friend, or somebody you're holding who's experiencing life's triumphs. I hope you'll share that name out loud this morning when I offer that time. Just speaking that name in this space with these people is meaningful. Joys and sorrows. Thank you. This morning I'm holding the Dobler family in my heart. Marilyn Dobler's service will be this coming Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock here in the sanctuary. And we're unable to hold a reception following that, but I think it'll be a wonderful event to celebrate a quiet life, but one that participated in the life of this congregation. Chuck and Marilyn organized the Odyssey for a number of years, and Chuck's going to be doing Marilyn's Odyssey as the eulogy on Tuesday. For all those whose names have remained unspoken, who don't have someone here to speak their name, we light this candle of community. Let's deepen into a time of meditation. Spirit of life and love, God of our deepest understanding. We pause in this stillness to rest for a moment, to quiet ourselves so that we can feel what stirs within us. Each intake of breath draws us closer to the pulse of life. And with each exhalation, we make room for something new. May we find in this gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our most tender spots. Here, may we find the inspiration and the encouragement we need to face life's challenges and to nurture ourselves and each other. In the presence of suffering across the globe, may we redouble our efforts to practice kindness where we are, with the hope that the light of our actions travels like light to the faraway stars. May our gestures of love and generosity seed possibility. May we walk humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment as we strive to live in right relationship with each other and with the earth. When life presses in and shifts us off balance, when pain assails us, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us, and may the presence of our love for each other bring us back to a place of gratitude and intention. Let's spend a few minutes in silence.
Good morning. A long time ago, when my children were really very small, my daughter Caroline was 4 and my son was 7. I overheard them talking. And Caroline said to Christopher, "Why doesn't God just tell us what we have to do? It would be so much easier." And Christopher, in his 7-year-old wisdom, replied, "Oh no, that would be so boring. Then everyone would do the same things. But God gave us free will. And that means we have to invent how we're going to live. And that makes the world a lot more interesting." Today, here, we are talking about living with intention. What does that mean? I teach a class called The Third Act for Women, in which I impress upon women that they are the designers of their lives, that all of us have the ability to shape what we do with our time and our talents. And if we don't think about it, time passes us by. And not designing your life is also a choice. We all have free will, as my little son once said. But much of the time, women respond to me in those classes that they never thought that they could have a dream about what they would do with their own lives. They had to take care of others, their children, their husbands, their parents, their bosses' needs. As I moved from nation to nation overseas, I was forced to examine my life over and over. I had to figure out what it was I was supposed to do. My method was to look at what the needs were in the country in which I was living, and then think really deeply about what skills I had that might fill some of those needs. That's how I determined what I was supposed to do in every culture in which I lived. And as Christopher said, that made it a lot more interesting. Intentional living takes just that. The intention to really think about what we are doing with our time and our talent. Why are we here? It takes the courage to turn down the many demands on our time that may not fit with our values or our goals. It takes claiming out loud our intentions and filling our time with those things, people, and activities that are in concert with those goals and those well thought out values. Such potential, incredible potential, lies in the heart of each one of us. There is no script. It's up to us. And therein lies the potential for beauty and courage, compassion and greatness in our world. Today's reading is Mornings at Blackwater by Mary Oliver. For years, every morning, I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, feet of ducks. It always assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is, the past is the past, and the present is what your life is. And you are capable of choosing what that will be. Darling citizen, so come to the pond, or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world.
Take this moment, sign and space. Take my friends around. Here among us, make the place where your love is found. Take the tiredness of my days. Take my past regret, letting your forgiveness touch all I can't forget. Take my talents, take my skills, take what's yet to be. Let my life be yours, and yet let it still be me.
Thursday is supposed to be my writing day, and I often sit and look at my computer for a long time instead. And it usually ends up that Saturday is my writing day. Sometimes Sunday morning. And I share this sort of strange thing with you in that I would really like it to be raining on my writing day. I would like it to be raining because, first of all, I love rain. Not all the time, but when it comes. And it seems to calm me for some reason. I don't know what that is. The gray, the quiet, the sound of the rain maybe stills something in my brain that needs to be stilled in order for me to focus. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the rain veranda at the Buddhist retreat center, Plum Village in Bordeaux, France, that he created and is now the largest Buddhist retreat center in the West. They made the veranda especially for the purpose of listening to the rain. So they could sit there and listen and just listen, bringing minds into stillness. It's like meditating. It is meditating. Sitting and listening for as long as you can, listening to the sound of the rain. You are out of your own brain and just listening. I use listening often when I meditate. As opposed to breathing, to center myself, listening to sounds that come and go, and focusing on the sounds allows me to center. In reality, in meditation, you really only need to pay attention to one thing and concentrate on that one thing. And as long as your mind is doing that, whether it's washing dishes or listening to the rain or following your breath, your mind stills. You settle into that moment. And sitting in stillness allows us to see things as they truly are. When the body is relaxed and the mind comes to rest, we see more clearly. As Thich Nhat Hanh writes, we become as still and clear as the water in a mountain lake whose tranquil surface reflects the blue sky above. The clouds and the surrounding rocky peaks, just as they are, As long as we're restless and the mind is unsettled, we won't be able to see reality clearly. We'll be like the lake on a windy day, since it's troubled and distorting the view of the sky. But as soon as we restore that stillness, we can look deeply and to begin to see the truth. The poets come at this in a different way, but it's really the same story. Mary Oliver's poem. What I want to say is past, and the present is what your life is. And you are capable of choosing what it is, what it will be, darling citizen. Come to the pond or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world. What an intimate expression of connection, connecting to life and longing, to imagination. Put your lips to the world. A kiss is such a momentary thing, and in that moment lies so much. Oliver says we're capable of choosing what our lives will be, but how often we quell the yearnings we have for something more or something different, for truly living into our values, and instead we get hung up on the security of what is not already. We're troubled. We don't like to risk change. We're both looking forward and holding back. The waters are troubled. We don't see clearly. Eastern wisdom and the poets of the ages have a way to bring us to some moment of reflection. And there's always been that tension, hasn't there, between the ideal of mindful and intentional living as suggested by those two different schools, and by the incredible pace of the modern Western world that seems to careen towards what? We don't know. Even our Unitarian Universalist tradition, which carries with it a healthy focus on this world and a proactive approach towards building a more just and loving society, has about it a certain sense of urgency. I know I probably preach that a lot. We try to create a balance by attending to the spiritual side of things and inspiring a commitment to social action. Or as the old saw about ministers, we try to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. But the world is constantly in our face through multiple medias. We are assaulted by tragic events every single day, and aggressive and reactionary behavior from all directions, from all levels of society. There are very few people today modeling the middle way. Injustice abounds, divisions increase, anxiety heightens. We, or at least I, feel the need to be doing something positive and constructive in response to build the beloved community right here and right now, as if it were a goal achievable in my lifetime. We religious professionals are warned about tilting at windmills, trying to do too much. Right now is what we are offered. And we are encouraged to maintain a strong spiritual practice to offset the stresses of engagement in congregation or the community, family, or other relationships. We are advised to be the minister in the moment. But even when I'm good at keeping my practice, it's so easy to slip right back into that treadmill. And it's then when I have to realize, and I think everyone who's practiced meditation has to understand that that's the practice. That when we get back into that mindset, when our monkey minds begin to go, that's when we recenter. And it's a continuing practice that's never ending. Thich Nhat Hanh says there will always be suffering, but there can always be joy and happiness in the moment with every step, if every step is taken in peace, if every step is taken in love. So yes, matching up our very Western Unitarian Universalist heritage that leans comfortably towards the use of reason and being very heady, even in religion. Matching that up with an Eastern approach, or even a poetic approach, or a contemplative practice, seems maybe it's not quite a match, but in fact, I think it is. We are encouraged to deepen into our own values. We did a service on this a few weeks ago. What are the values that you hold most dear, and how do you live those out into the world? And if you need to fall back on our Unitarian Universalist ethical principles, holding in each step that sense of the dignity and worth of each person you meet. Walking in justice, equity, and compassion in all relations. Feeling that interdependence with all things. Thich Nhat Hanh liked to talk about interbeing long before the Unitarians came up with interdependence. That we inter-are, that we can't exist without one another. He gives the example of the flower. That without any of the elements in the ground or the sun or the wind or the air, the nutrients, the flower doesn't exist. And we are the same. We like to think of ourselves as individuals separate, but we can't exist without one another. That's the thing that becomes most clear when we deepen into stillness and begin to see and feel what's most important. So with Unitarian Universalism, the way I see it is that we pair this centering, this constant centering that we are called to do, with a sense of our imagination of what could be, and we put that all into our next step. Can we imagine ourselves being in relationship, respecting the dignity and worth of every person? Can we imagine ourselves being in relationship with even those people we disagree with? And this is where things sort of maybe start to break down a little bit, because we struggle with that. But if we can deepen into that moment and recognize the humanity and the oneness in each person we meet, our moral imagination is moving into our every step. This is not easy work. It never has been. So many people who attempt meditation say, I can't do it. It's not for me. We're too much in our heads. But I think that understanding that meditation is not something you achieve and all of a sudden you're enlightened. The world goes on after you find your way to a good practice. Suffering still exists. It's just that in each moment, if you bring yourself and your clarity and your moral imagination to that step, there is joy in each step. At our best, we engage in what we call a glad curiosity, overcoming our natural fear of the unknown and venturing forth with little to sustain us as Unitarian Universalists, except our zest for living and our hunger for new experience and knowledge. we recognize, if we can get to that clarity, the complexity that rests in ourselves, and we know the courage it sometimes takes to look into our own depths. But it is imperative in these times of strife, in these times when each one of us is struggling with the realities of the world, that we look humbly on what we've been given, that we have the privilege and capacity to imagine ourselves and our values in action, both within our own community or our local communities or in the world, and to lend our best selves to the work of healing, engaging in healthy discussion and creating a new normal that serves the common good. But to truly be able to accomplish something big requires that we continually center ourselves and bring the work into every step. It is as it has always been that our moral imaginations, what could be, move us toward the good. The practice we need is for each of us to center and bring our ideals into the present. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "Meditation is not to escape from society, but to come back to ourselves and see what's going on. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. With mindfulness, we know what to do and what not to do to help." And still, we need a little inspiration along the way. And I will remind you in these last few words of some words many of us heard either in the moment or on video sometime soon after that. The poet Amanda Gorman, a year ago this week, reminding us that there is always light if we're only brave enough to see it, if we're only brave enough to be it. And so may it be.
As we take the time to consider these words and today's message, let us also take the time to show our gratitude for this community and for all the ways it has enriched us during this difficult COVID period and before, and hopefully afterwards. This morning's offering will be gratefully received. Please consider sending your donation in today. The information you need is on the screen.
Down yonder and yankety-yank, well, the bullfrog jumped from bank to bank, and it was just because I had nothing else to do. He stubbed his toe, he fell in the water, you could hear him holler for 1.25 miles. It was just because I had nothing else to do. There are lots of folks that are like that foolish frog of mine. Yes, they get themselves in trouble just to pass the time. And the devil, he just waits around just to catch that kind that never got nothing else to do. So that little frog walked in the town and said, I'm gonna knock another big frog down. That's because I had nothing else to do. But the consolation that the good book brings is when the frog dies, he gets no wings, and that's because I had nothing else to do. There are lots of folks that are like that foolish frog of mine. Yes, they get themselves in trouble just to pass the time. And the devil, he just waits around just to catch the kind that never got nothing else to do. So when they buried that frog, the preacher, he said, well, the reason why that poor frog is dead, it was just because they had nothing else to do. So listen now, people, just listen to me. You better stay at home with the family, and you'll have a whole lot of work to do. There are lots of folks that are like that foolish frog of mine. Yes, they get themselves in trouble just to pass the time. And the devil, he just waits around just to catch the kind that never got nothing else to do. When the great horn blows on Judgment Day, well, we're all gonna get on our knees and pray, and we're gonna have some real old work to do. There are lots of folks that are like that foolish frog of mine. Yes, they get themselves in trouble just to pass the time. And the devil, he just waits around just to catch the kind that never got nothing else to do.
Thank you, Frank, for cheering us up at the end of the service here. Got to all watch out for the devil out there. Let me take a moment to fill you in on some of the major announcements or information that's coming out in this congregation. Everything you need to know goes out every week on the Sunday news and an email, and is also available online if you would like to check it out. But here are some of the important things I'd like to mention. The reopening committee met this past Thursday, and due to the still high levels of COVID here in Collier County, they've decided to continue the current policy, at least for the present moment, for the next few weeks. And that means attendance in this sanctuary is limited to 50%. And everyone present should be vaccinated and wearing masks. And the mask should be worn indoors and out on the patio at all times. Groups and committees are urged to gather on Zoom, and the RE program will continue at present on Zoom, at least for a couple more weeks. We also want to remind you that this month is the time of our annual pledge, with the theme of stoking the fires of commitment. By this time, you probably have received a pledge card in person or by mail, and now is the time for you to return it. Our finance committee is eager to start building the budget for the coming year, and they really cannot do that without pledges in hand. And this week, on Wednesday, we have Wonderful Wednesday. We're bringing back a very wonderful tradition here called the Odyssey, where people in our community tell their life stories. It's a fantastic thing. It really brings personality. You learn about each other, and it's a really very special thing. And our first one, after all these years of COVID, will be given by Joanne Swank this Thursday. Now, because of the virus, it's going to be on Zoom at 7 o'clock. But please check it out, because she's there to tell you her life story. And now, let's rise for our closing hymn. Be That Guide. Feel free to hum or sing inside your mask.
Whom love sustains, rise above the daily strife. Lift on high the good you find. the test may be. Through the ages they are right, though they build in agony. Be that teacher truth directs, move beyond the old frontier, though the frightened fear that truth be tomorrow's pioneer.
Go out to the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Have a wonderful day.